Okay, Sujin, I think we can get started on the recording. A warm good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this industry webinar once again. It's so great to have you guys back in this webinar series. So welcome again. Today we are having a special webinar series that SGTech together with GovTech and the Smart Nation Digital Government Office under the Prime Minister's Office is jointly organizing Re-engineering the Government OS, strengthening capabilities with cloud. I think we all know the strength and the power of cloud computing and the effect of digitalization. And we are very pleased to continue on with this series of Re-engineering the Government OS. Last week's series, we talked about how the government is taking a citizen-centric approach towards designing solutions for us and us citizens. For those of you who wish to watch that, it's actually available on sgtech.org.sg as well. So, as you know, cloud itself is such an important part. The government has announced an additional increase in ICT spending, and more than 80% of that spending is actually open to SME, such as yourself and myself, to take part. So this whole industry series about re-engineering the government OS allows us to communicate and share with us, from government leaders and from SGTech, ideas we have about designing solutions, cloud computing, and next week about sensory. So there are two things first before we get started. A recording of this webinar will be available on the SGTech YouTube channel. You can actually always look for it on sgtech.gov.org.sg to receive the recording. And for those of you, as this is a webinar, if you have Q&A for us, please by all means always click on the Q&A function in Zoom and then be able to ask us a question. So Q&A will always be available. Please help us and I'll pick out a selection of questions to answer them later on in the day. So today, I'm so pleased to have two amazing guests. I have Chong Ken Leong, Director of the Managed Hosting Infrastructure of GovTech joining us. And from SGTech, so pleased to have Gunnar, the second Vice Chair of our Cloud and Data Chapter, to share with us some of his insight as well. So we're going to start first with a sharing by Ken Leong, and then after that, we'll all come in together to take your questions in a panelist and dialogue style. All right? So before we want to get started, I also want to remind you guys that next week on 1st July, we have another special session called Developing AI and Sensory Capabilities. If you are really interested in this area, please continue to sign up for this event at, once again, sgtech.org.sg. Now, my name is Ivan. I'm pleased to be your moderator. But without further ado, I would now like to pass my time over to Ken Leong, who's ready to share with you. Ken Leong, over to you. Hi, Ken Leong.
Give me a sec. I bring up my slide.
No worries.
Okay, I think you all should be able to see your slide now. Okay, so today I'm talking about strengthening capabilities with cloud. So a quick introduction. So I'm, as Ivan has mentioned, I'm Ken Leong from GovTech. I'm the Director for Managed Hosting Infrastructure, part of Government Infrastructure Group. So I oversee the three main government hosting infrastructure and platforms. These are the Government Data Center, GDC, Government Private Cloud, GPC, and Government on Commercial Cloud, GCC. I think most of you are familiar with these projects. So I joined GovTech 4 years ago from private sector, where I've been working with MNCs and have provided consultancy and advisory services to many companies in the APAC region. I joined that because I always wanted to challenge myself, and my next challenge is to write the book when I can find my time. At the rate things are going in GovTech, I may have to wait till I retire. So going to the topic proper, so this digital transformation is one of the top priority items in any CIO's agenda list. So it's true for both private and public sector companies. Governments are embarking on digital transformation to improve digital services for our citizens as well as businesses. In this Netflix and iPhone age, right, every citizen, business, and worker expects it to be just as easy to engage government and to consume our government services. In fact, I think many of you would be disappointed, right, if you cannot find a mobile app for a particular government service, or you still have to fill out a paper or PDF form. So with the cloud, right, government can actually access to readily available technologies and solutions and don't have to actually build these themselves from scratch. With the time saved, the government can focus more on how to innovate and develop better government digital services with these technologies. So in June 2018, the government actually announced the Digital Government Blueprint, DGB for short. So the DGB lays out the 6 strategies for building a digital government, where we will make better use of data and technologies to improve the delivery of services, as well as how we engage the citizens and businesses. By leveraging and adopting cloud, this is one of the key strategies in the DGB. So cloud actually provides the foundation for government to access and employ the emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on. So it allows the government to make changes quickly and continually improve to meet user needs, as well as develop reliable and innovative services by leveraging on these technologies. Adopting cloud is going to be, it's not just about cost savings, right? It's also about how quickly the government can deliver greater value. The digital government can leverage on cloud to achieve this by through the speed and flexibility, as well as the security that the cloud offers. So it also catalyzes the innovation, right? Because cloud actually allows the ability to improve collaboration by connecting with partners, our developers, researchers, and also other governments and agencies. By having the system and data on the cloud, we can actually be able to collaborate with all these people. And this would not have been possible, right, if we have been using the on-prem systems. So recent COVID-19 is a awakening call for governments and businesses to modernize their applications and also to build engineering capabilities, in particular in cloud. So without cloud, it would not have been possible for GovTech and agencies as well as the businesses to swiftly respond to the outbreak as well as the circuit breaker measures. And also for GovTech to deliver the suite of digital tools such as Trace Together, Safe Entry, and Mass Go Where. So to ensure, for businesses to ensure that there's no disruption, right, they actually leverage on cloud-based CRM, ERM, content management, as well as collaboration solutions, so that because all the staff are telecommuting and they can actually access all these systems anywhere. This is an example of, it's a case study from MOE where in response to the circuit breaker measures, right? So suddenly there's actually a need to increase the demand for home-based learning by 3 times within 1 week. If the system was not hosted in cloud, it would be very difficult to suddenly increase capacity within such short notice. Moreover, during the outbreak, right, the lead time for hardware would be longer. So with cloud, it has actually allowed us to scale and respond quickly to new requirements. So the government first foray into commercial cloud was Content Website Platform, CWP, which was launched in 2016, right? However, in CWP, everything is done through a contractor who provides the platform for agencies to load the code and website content to be published. It's not necessary for agencies to work on the cloud platforms, nor be familiar with the cloud services. GCC, which was launched in the first quarter of 2019, is the first time agencies need to set up, configure, and maintain their application on the cloud platform. Hence, our cloud maturity is still at its early stage. Sorry. So GCC launched in 2019, right? We adopted a multi-cloud approach as each CSPs have unique strengths, and we want to leverage on them. GCC is also a key enabler for transforming us into the digital government, right? And we have set an aggressive target to move a significant number of the agency systems to cloud by FY23. To allow agencies to adopt cloud, several changes actually need to happen. So first of all, we actually introduced a commercial cloud first policy. so that agencies can adopt cloud for new systems that are classified, restricted, and below. We also revised the system classification and information sensitivity framework so that agencies can reclassify their systems better. A cloud competency development roadmap was also developed to uplift the competencies of public officers. And we have been working with CSPs to raise the competency levels of their partners in the industry. To ensure that we meet the cloud adoption target set for FY23, we formed a cloud adoption team. The cloud adoption team works with agencies to develop their cloud adoption plans and migration strategies, as well as develop templates, guidelines, and common services to help agencies with their cloud adoption. So learning from the first tranche of systems onboarded to GCC in 2019, right, where most of the systems actually adopted lift and shift. In order to maximize the benefits of cloud, we need to strengthen our capabilities further. So cloud capabilities include being able to build systems on common cloud platforms that are easily accessible by everyone. This will improve collaboration and promotes innovation. And also leveraging on reusable products and services to build less and deliver more quickly. Next is to uplift the cloud competencies in public offices and industries, as well as adopting agile practices at scale. So I'll elaborate further in the following slides. So the cloud platforms, everyone has access to the same cloud platform from anywhere and with any device. As long as you are familiar with it, you will know how to code, you will know how to set up the system on the chosen cloud platform. This means it's very easy for the government to collaborate and engage the industry. So going forward, as we work towards migrating more systems on cloud, agencies will be engaging vendors who have experience and competencies in these cloud platforms. And more agencies will also want to use more of the native cloud services as they modernize their application. Hence, agencies will be looking to engage vendors who can help them achieve this goal so that they can maximize their cloud benefits. GovTech has developed this Singapore Government Tech Stack, SGTS, and this comprises platforms, reusable products and services to help agencies to deliver faster and securely so that agencies don't have to build them from scratch. So how do we work with the industry on this? GovTech has been and also will be engaging vendors to evaluate new solutions for SGTS. And this includes productizing solutions that vendors may have already developed for agencies so that these can be reused by other agencies as well. Vendors should also familiarize themselves with SGTS, and you are encouraged to participate and collaborate in the development. So this is the catalog for SGTS. The layers below supports the development and delivery of the products and product platforms. So as I mentioned, we are actually encouraging vendors to leverage SGTS when they embark on their next project with the agencies, right? They are also encouraged to contribute to its development. So we actually adopted a community approach to engaging developers and businesses to develop the SGTS. So for example, in the developer portal, which is recently launched in June, vendors will be able to leverage on the available technologies and tools to speed up the next project with more speed and less pain. Similarly, in the NDI API portal, which publishes all the APIs, developers can actually integrate applications with these APIs. And there's also the Sensors and IoT portal, which provides information on how to leverage the cloud platform and other products to integrate and manage the sensors and IoT devices. And lastly, the data.gov.sg, where developers can also leverage the published APIs to access the publicly available government data for their applications. So these are just some examples of available information out there that vendors can leverage. So next, the other capability is about upgrading the cloud skills and competencies. So GovTech developed this cloud competency roadmap for public officers and vendors. To date, we have over 800 public officers being trained and over 100 certified. We have also developed a GCC foundation training and certification so that agencies and vendors become familiar with the design and processes required to onboard and set up their application in GCC. So vendors should invest in upskilling their workforce in cloud, as well as attending the GCC foundation training and certification, so that which will be beneficial to them for their next project in GCC. So the cloud competency roadmap consists of 3 proficiency levels. So level 1, you have the foundation, which is training without certification. Level 2 is the associate level type of training. And level 3 is the professional level type of training, which is quite aligned to the industry type of training roadmap that is available as well. Next, to help agencies and vendors with their migration, the cloud adoption team has actually developed the cloud implementation playbook. This consists of instructions and guidance on how agencies and vendors can set up their applications and consume cloud services. This set of instructions will be extracted and also published on the developer portal as well. So for the transformation to digital government, it's not all about technology, right? It's not all about deploying system in the cloud. So agencies need to adopt agile practices so that they can actually deliver better value to citizens and businesses in the shortest possible time. So cloud has enabled GovTech and agencies to be able to adopt these agile practices. As Agile becomes common practices within the government, vendors who are engaged by agencies are also expected to use the same practices. So this is a case study for the business grant portal, which leverage on agile practices, right? So it actually helped to harmonize and streamline the grant application processes from various agencies like BCA and Enterprise Singapore, so that the businesses don't have to go to different places to apply for the grants. Grant application processes was also reduced from 40 to just 7. And by adopting the agile practices and CI/CD as well as SGTS, they were able to deliver their first MVP in a shorter time, as well as new features every 2 weeks. So in closing, basically we have a significant number of systems that plan to be migrated to the cloud by FY23. So over 140 systems have migrated in 2019, and the pace has not slowed down in 2020 despite the COVID-19. So the government has also announced recently that the remaining fiscal year for 2020, there will be increased ICT spending by 30% to 3.5 billion. So this will be used to drive the government's digital transformation efforts as well as the adoption of cloud. And we will definitely continue to partner with the industry on this transformation journey. So summarizing basically the 3 things that we are looking for to strengthen our cloud capabilities together with the industry. First is upskilling on cloud. Then we look at collaborating on the development of SG tech stack, as well as to leverage the available products and services in your next project. Then next is to apply agile practices in all your projects that you work on. Right. That's all for now.
Thank you so much.
Presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Keng Leong. Let me just go and take over the screen share first. While we wait. Okay, so I think a lot of you knows our American counterparts in the US right now. It is summer is traditionally the period of time where it's all about developer conference. So today I think Keng Leong has given an amazing introduction about all these capabilities the government has with the cloud. I feel like I'm hosting a developer conference. So, before I'm going to give all our audience members some time. We have really good questions, and I want to give some time to also my fellow panelists to get some questions answered as well. So before that, just once again, because it's been coming up over and over in the Q&A, we always want to remind our friends that the information that provided today, please use it for the intention of education. We apologize if there's any mistake, but always seek your own independent advice before conducting any business or investment decision. My name is Ivan. I'm a co-opted counselor with SGTech, and I think some of you guys are new to us. SGTech is the premier trade association for the tech industry in Singapore. We are so pleased to be working with GovTech and the Smart Nation Office under the Prime Minister Office to be able to do this special webinar to talk about different ideas and solutions the government has for the industry. Want to stress again, the slides will not be available. We apologize for that due to confidentiality reason, but a recording will be available on sgtech.org.sg. We are getting all the Q&A questions. My team is now looking at the Q&A questions and filtering them so that we can take a few of them in a short while. So once again, just now you heard from King Leong. King Leong is the director of the Managed Hosted Infrastructure, GovTech. So a lot of our audience member today, I see a lot of familiar names. I think we have two big groups. We have our regular friends from the SME world, and we have our friends who are our SGTech members who are asking very, very technical questions about GDC, about developer codes and stuff. So before we take those questions, I want to give some time to Gunnar. Gunnar is my second vice chairman of the Cloud and Data chapter within SGTech. So Gunnar has some ideas. I think Gunnar, we would love to hear how people can benefit from being part of the Cloud and Data chapter. And most importantly, what does the future hold for SME using cloud and how they can work together with the government? Gunnar, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Ivan. So as always, thanks, Ivan. So as always, it's always great to see the Singapore government taking the lead in establishing both the standards and guidance in the market. Singapore has always been a country where the government always leads first to try and share or set the direction for the rest of the market. So this will be a strong impetus to drive cloud take-up in Singapore. And the fact that there is increased projects, increased funding and spending by the government, of course, is a great news for all the vendors. It's not just about projects that the government is giving out, right? There's also a lot of funding for grants, etc., to help organizations, whether you're an SME or a SGTech member, you can actually now make it easier for you in this situation, right? And more importantly, the fact that this is all happening during COVID means that COVID has created a situation where every organization is starting to look at how do I go digital, right? I can't go to the office, I can't meet people. It's not just about Zoom videos, right? It is more than that. So SGTech, the Cloud and Data chapter, CDC, has been working very closely with IMDA as well in trying to get all kinds of organization access to funding, access to expertise, consulting, for example, to try and go digital, adopt the framework the government is investing in the Government OS, right? How we can actually participate both as a vendor as well as a customer, right? SME organization. And if you really look at it across the globe, right, where does all of this play? If you look at it from a spectrum perspective, yes, the US is probably a few steps ahead of the rest of the world because that's where the cloud originated and a lot of the cloud vendors are effectively from there. But if you really look at the approach, Singapore government being a leader, especially in this part of the world, has the benefits, right? Instead of going down the US approach of each agency doing their own thing with their own cloud provider, Singapore government has actually been able to set up this whole GCC, the Government Commercial Cloud Framework, which allows all of the agencies to better work together instead of each one of them trying to do their own thing. So this has really been a key differentiator. Yes, maybe it's driven by our size. We are a smaller country. We are a smaller government. But this has actually given a stronger push in terms of how we can do and you have less problems, right? And if you really look at it, again, same thing plays out. Yes, well, US started first. I think we are about on par with Europe or even Australia, for example, where we've actually have been able to get into the there's three phases, right? There's a lift and shift phase, which is what everyone did in the beginning. And everyone went phase two is try and modernize. But I think what's also happening in the world now, and which Singapore is benefiting from, is in the modernization phase, the need to now be very considerate of the fact that you should not be worried, or you should be worried about locking to a single cloud provider, because at some point in time, regardless of what the political situation is or economic situation or just pricing factors, you would need to move from one cloud provider to another cloud provider. And when that happens, you need to really look into the portability, right? And the whole government approach of this has been, look, it is a multi-cloud. It's just not about on-premise or commercial cloud. It's always been, let's look at it across the board. So I think the approach is great, and I think it's the right time to be looking at this whole cloud OS, Gov OS, and how it impacts the whole of government and the whole of Singapore economy as a whole.
Thank you so much, Guna. And no pitch for why our member companies should join the Cloud and Data Chapter, Guna.
Yes, of course. And like I said,
what can they benefit?
SGTech,
sorry guys, we are taking some time to do some koyo selling here. Yeah.
So as I said, right, the SGTech and especially the CDC are working very closely with IMDA from getting support for both SMEs as well as all member organizations, right? Whether you're looking for expertise in how to move to cloud, what are the technical skills that you need available, what's the consulting help that you need to try and move your solution or your current business to the cloud. So,
all right.
So join CDC.
So join us. Okay.
Join us.
The email will be available. I will flash out the email again for both SGTech and the Government of Singapore later, and I'll put it in the group chat. So King Leong and Guna, thank you so much. We have a lot of questions to go through. Now, I want to let our audience member know, I'm very pleased because a lot of you have been asking us about the slides. I have confirmed with our GovTech friends, we will be sharing a PDF version of King Leong's slide. We will be sharing a version of King Leong's slide, a PDF version. It will be available tomorrow or maybe Monday. Give us a bit of time on the SGTech website for you to download. All right, so we will share a version of it. So let's get started. King Leong, I think the first question that everyone is asking is about the foundation course for GCC and how can they take part in the certification and training. I don't think you need to let us know the pricing, but I think a lot of our ICT vendors who are in this would love to go for the training and certification. Will you be able to give us a bit more information on that?
Yes, so the foundation training, you can actually write into info@tech.gov.sg. We will let you know the process for registering the training. There are currently no charges for the training and certification.
Sorry, give me a while. Let me type it for everyone. So the email for, so we have a bunch of questions that's all asking the same thing about the certification and the pricing for the training of the GCC. So I pasted in the group chat, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to attend the GCC training and certification program, no charge, but you need to drop an email to info@tech.gov.sg. The email is also available in the group chat on Zoom itself. So that is the option. And I believe it's free, right, King Leong?
Yes.
All right. Next question. Let's talk about SaaS. What do you think? SaaS solutions and SaaS cloud. Do you have to be geofenced within Singapore before the government adopt possible SaaS solution? I think SaaS is becoming big, and different agencies would like to adopt SaaS. What is the stand on that, and how can ICT vendor be part if they're offering SaaS solution?
So for SaaS currently it's actually based on the classification of the system and the data. So for restricted, currently we have to geofence within Singapore. As long as it's classified data, it has to be geofenced into Singapore.
But must it be on the GCC? I think that would be the more pertinent question.
Okay, so then it goes back to the definition of SaaS, right? I mean, SaaS is basically the provider owns the whole entire stack, including the data center.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be hosted on GCC, right? But there's a process for whitelisting this type of SaaS providers. Got it.
So there's a process. So to summarize it, I think different agencies are okay using SaaS solution if possible for Singapore vendors, but for restricted material, they have to be geofenced within a Singapore-based location or server. And I think we have some, Gunnar, maybe we would like to chime in on location of server and this idea of geofencing.
I think the issue has progressed significantly, especially from a security and the data privacy perspective, right? So there's no longer a situation where you really have to worry about where my software as a service is. It effectively comes back down to where the data is. There's now a lot of capability within the cloud providers where I can actually have my compute processing at a different place from where my data actually resides. So if I'm looking at certain applications that I need to deploy from a SaaS perspective, yes, I can actually deploy only those computational capability outside of my environment, right? Completely in a different data center or even outside of the country. Because then what I can still do is I still can keep my data in a secure place and provide access in a limited end with obfuscation, encryption, etc. for that function to be able to function and then give me back a result. So the geofencing piece, while I would say is critical, but the technology is moving at such a fast pace where it will become less as a critical criteria as we move forward. Because of data security from a government perspective, it tends to be more of a requirement. But if you look at it from an overall market perspective, then it is fairly open.
Got it. So I think rapidly changing scene, and one of the reasons why industry trade groups possibly can add more color to it, because it is such a evolving area and target, and obviously technology is evolving so fast. So let's shift a bit of conversation. I would still take more engineering question all the way till our last 15 minutes before we move into the SME questions. Let's talk about monolithic versus microservices. Keng Leong, are we, is the government thinking about developing things via microservices, or is it still a very monolithic structure for vendors here who wants, especially since 3.5 billion new software ICT will be spent this year?
So in our first tranche of systems migrating to GCC, there was mainly lift and shift. So those are still traditional VM kind of base of application system setup. So in the next phase, we are looking more towards modernizing the application. So that means leveraging on containers and microservices type of application and to be more cloud native. Yeah. So that is definitely something that we are pushing agencies to go forward with and to leverage more of cloud native architecture, services, and if possible, SaaS as well. Yeah.
All right. And then, Gunnar, for our ICT companies, hearing this from Keng Leong, a lot of times, I see in a lot of ICT companies, right, they are still developing very monolithic structure software bases. What would be the recommendation, especially if you are smaller, like you are very 10 people outfit providing certain service? Any recommendation for them into this area of containerization and microservices? It's a fundamental shift, isn't it?
Yep, it is a fundamental shift, right? So especially if you look at the smaller companies, especially Singaporean small companies, like you said, the type that are 10 men, founded by one guy who's got very strong technical background. And over the years, he's built an overall solution area that captures a particular domain, maybe payroll, maybe HR or something, right? So he's captured that piece. But moving forward, yes, you will be able to continue to survive, take that application because it's small enough, put it on the cloud. But the whole business ecosystem has changed, right? It is, for example, it's now become an ecosystem provider. So I'm not just providing a payroll software anymore. I need to be able to not just connect with, for example, multiple HR. I may even be able to link to a service for printing of my payroll slip, for example, right? So my application needs to be able to disintegrate into a bunch of APIs, because if I don't, it's the same thing. Okay, my generation, we used to buy CDs and tapes. Whether you like it or not, you took the whole bundle, right? But now you can go to Spotify and pay for a song. Total revenue for the whole CD of songs becomes a lot higher than buying it by pieces, than buying it as a whole. But so from an economic perspective, from a business perspective, it would make more sense for a lot of these companies to move to a microservice-based architecture. And
Got
SGTech, like again, to do a plug for SGTech, we have the skills, we have the capabilities within the members to provide this help, right? And both from a funding perspective as well as technical expertise perspective, we put the programs in place to support those ISVs in Singapore as well.
Thank you so much, Guna. And just to say, I think King Leong, myself, and you, we are all the same generation. We grew up with you know that we are the same generation when we all first used Mac OS 8 when we first started our engineering journey. Now, I want to say I have some of my friends who are messaging me now in the group chat saying that, wow, this is a very technical call. Yes. So once again, to our SME community who are tuning in, who are not from the ICT sector, I will spend the next 10 last minute of my session talking about SME questions. But for now, I will take more of the very engineering question, because someone just messaged me, what is monolithic? So I'm so sorry you don't have time to answer those questions now, but yes, it is a very technical session. So moving on to more technical question, King Leong, if you can comment, what is the underpinning technology that you guys built G Cloud, your government cloud stack on? Are we talking about what kind of foundation codes are you guys building the structure on?
G Cloud. So G Cloud was actually already commissioned, so I don't know why we still need to answer that, right? So GPC, which is the replacement for G Cloud, is basically based on virtualization or software-defined data center. So there's a lot of virtualization, software-defined storage, hyper-converged infrastructure, and things like that, as well as automation to do the self-service portal orchestration and automation for the provisioning. Yeah. If you're talking about GCC, which is what we are talking about mainly in this, it's actually a very thin layer where there's a portal where agencies go there to get their respective accounts and provision their VNets and VPCs. After that, basically they go straight to their respective CSP portal to set up their application, subscribe their services, and so on. So that is how GCC is being designed. Yeah.
So G Cloud will be, as per I know, I think what King Leong has shared, for our friends and the states, we know there's a lot of jargons, but G Cloud is a decommission, and we're going to GCC and towards a GPC structure. And I think King Leong has addressed the underlying idea itself. Now, King Leong, another question would be IP rights. So, let's say a vendor is to collaborate with the Gov developer portal, right? How do you guys handle the IP rights for the solution by our member companies?
So the approach for the developer portal is more of a community open source kind of approach. So whatever is being developed is widely available to anyone who can contribute to enhance further or to use. Yeah. So it's not. So currently that is the approach that we are taking for the developer portal. Yeah.
Got it. I think last question before we move into a bit more SME-centric questions will be, maybe, King Leong, if I know it's hard to comment on this, but if you can share some ideas, since a lot of idea is that we want to move government systems to cloud, right, by FY 2023 as part of the government digital blueprint. Any examples of existing solutions that you are already moving to cloud that was not traditionally in the cloud by other agencies, if you know any of them?
Sorry, didn't quite understand the question. Sorry.
Okay, so as part of the blueprint, the government digital blueprint, the goal was to move more systems to cloud, right? So any example of these systems that are moving to cloud right now that maybe traditionally was hosted itself?
There are many systems that are on the pipeline. There are new systems, there are existing systems that were traditionally hosted on GDC or agencies data center or in GPC that are moving to the cloud. So then there's also new systems from various agencies, which I believe in the Straits Times or in the write-up there, they also already mentioned some of the systems there. So I don't need to mention here.
Got it. Thank you so much, King Leong, for that. Yes. So now let's talk about SME and challenges. Then we have about 10 more minutes. So a few of our friends here in the audience are SME members. Not from the ICT space. So perhaps before I pass it to Guna, King Leong, what do you think are the challenges the Singapore government face in moving to cloud? Like it was a very big organization. And hopefully we can learn from some of these challenges within the SME community.
So it goes back to the three things that I mentioned in my slide. So first is the readiness or familiarity or the skill sets of vendors or SMEs with the various CSP platforms, as well as their cloud competency, right? So that's one. There were some challenges getting the right people. Then, of course, the other thing is the familiarity with GCC, right? So how to onboard, get their accounts, and so on. So there were some challenges around that as well. Then lastly is about also agencies, vendors, because in the first phase is mostly lift and shift. We didn't really had the opportunity to modernize these applications to be more microservices or make use of all the cloud native solutions and so on. So it still goes back to the competency of the vendors and the SMEs that we engage in all this design or implementation of the system. So these are things that definitely are one of the key challenges that we need to overcome. Yeah.
Thank you, King Leong. So Guna, if you are, I know we come from a bigger organization, but if you are SME now and it's like suddenly government say digitalize cloud and all this stuff, lost in the sea of this, what will your recommendation be? A non-ICT SME, what can they do? Why should they adopt cloud?
Okay, so yes, I'm part of big companies, but most of my customers tend to be also very small organizations. So I think
perfect.
Based on so if you looked at all of the SME you talk to, the first fundamental problem they have is knowledge, skills, and capability. For me to build things to cloud, first of all, I need to understand the cloud. Well, over time, the technology has become simpler, easier to adopt. People who come out of school now tend to have a basic cloud understanding just on day one, right? Compared to years ago. So while things have improved from what the schools are teaching and being able to hire skilled people, but the general issue has always been, where can I get skilled people or where can I reskill people? This is one area that the government has invested a lot, especially during COVID. If you are interested in picking up things like containers and the Kubernetes, etc., guess what? There's a lot of free programs, right? Even my current organization is offering a lot of free courses, right, around open source, etc. So you can go online, get certification. So it has become easier for organizations. Even if they're funded certification required, then guess what? The government is funding those certifications for people to reskill themselves, whether you are a PMET or existing person. So skills is one big problem. And that's, like say, there are steps to mitigate that piece. The second challenge is always to do business, to move to a microservice-based architecture is technical issue, but it doesn't mean that you've solved world peace by just doing that, right? You also need to re-architect your business. How do I operate, right? Now that I've got it on the cloud, does that mean that now I can start selling in Malaysia or the US? How do I do business? Considering the fact that I've got a new cloud model, right? It's not just about being able to put my things on the cloud. How do I also become a digital organization? So I think that is also a challenge from an organizational perspective to get the necessary thinking process in terms of when I go cloud. It's just not about technically modernizing my applications, etc., but it's also about how do I do business in the cloud. Things would change. You cannot say that because I've got a digital shop, and I still expect somebody to give me a phone call. I must have a chatbot. And if there's a chatbot, it doesn't mean I can respond in 1 hour's time. If you don't respond in 1 minute, so your whole business model changes, right? So I think those are the challenges, the two main challenges that SMEs will face. How do I transform my business? By the same time, I also need to be able to get technical expertise or hire the right talent to help me do that as well.
Oh, for sure. I think, fundamentally speaking, to our SME members tuning in, it's time to have a radical rethinking of digitalization, of technology, and it is such a drastic thing. So don't think, I think one thing that, don't be a pipe piper, don't follow the pipe piper, right? Don't, just because we're all of us here and we are from the ICT sector, we say, yeah, cloud is important, let's go cloud. I think more importantly, our recommendation, and I think I summarized Guna's point, right? Think about your business plan first, think about your business model first before, and know that cloud is a great way to operationalize and save costs and scale for the future itself. Am I correct, Guna?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to take one or two more questions. I love this question from our fellow counselor. By the way, just now I just want to acknowledge one of our counselors, Sun Tian, who asked the question about the government stack itself as well. So I want to now acknowledge another question from Shin Ho Lau, who's with us in this chat as well. Shin Ho is a fellow counselor, asking a great question. King Leong, GovTech stack, technology stack, that, like, for example, you guys have introduced Form SG for data capturing. Any plans to introduce more solutions that we can use by the public, such as, I think Shin Ho say, like data analytics, visualization. Any idea, or would there be a pitch for you to host all of these ideas that you guys have that maybe the public can use as well?
So data analytics and sensors and all these are also part of the SG tech stack. So as I mentioned, there's things like in the data.gov.sg portal that you can actually get more information around those data analytics and things that you can actually leverage in for your applications or next project with the government. Yeah.
Got it. So I think part of the SG, not SG Tech, the trade association, but SG technology stack for our friends listening in as well. All right. So, I really want to thank our two panelists for today. I want to give you guys some time. So Guna, any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience member before we call it a day? And then I'll pass it to King Leong.
Yeah, I have to close off with the plug. So as any SME organization or ICT company, please get engaged with SGTech, the Cloud and Data Chapter. We do have a lot of things to help you, and we have the expertise and the programs to help you. So reach out to us, and we will be able to connect you with the right key people or help you with your problems.
Thank you so much, Guna. And King Leong, or any final thoughts that you have to share with our audience member?
Well, basically, like I mentioned, the three things, right? Those are the key things that that are important, right, to help us to progress and meet our goals of in modernizing and also in our digital transformation, right? Moving more of the application onto the cloud by FY23.
Thank you so much, King Leong. So, once again, on behalf of SGTech, thank you to our friends, and thank you, of course, to our two amazing panelists, King Leong, Director of Managed Hosting Infrastructure, GovTech, and Guna, our second Vice Chairman of Cloud and Data Chapter. So I think this series has been amazing. As your host for this, unlike our traditional afternoon series, this Re-engineering the Government OS series really bring us, it's very technical driven, very developer-centric session, and I think our members and our friends in the community really appreciate it. So for those of you who love the series and would like to continue on, once again, a reminder, next week on 1st July, we have our last part of this series for now, developing AI, artificial intelligence, and sensor capabilities. I think this will go deeper into the area itself. We'll announce our speakers then and there. On behalf of SGTech, thank you once again. Now, we need all you guys to help us fill up the post-webinar survey. The survey link is now available. Once you close this session, you will open up. But for those of you who do not, you can just take a phone out and scan this itself. It's been my privilege to have Guna and King Leong. Thank you so much. I wish all my fellow Singaporeans a safe time as we go into circuit phase 2 of our situation. But remember, if you can, try to stay home as much as possible. Majula Singapura, and thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.